All right. Hello, everybody. So today we're going to take a look at Tessellation Academy. And what's on screen right now is my planning spreadsheet of all the different things that I'm teaching inside of Tessellation Academy. And I'll zoom in here so you can read what is even in it. So this is Tessellation Academy is my course where I teach a tiling perspective to folding and designing in a different topic every month. And it started in February 2024 with alternating square twists. Then we went on to equilateral triangle tiling or arrangements of triangle twists. This is the list with the tutorial patterns listed out and all of the other crease patterns that you get inside of Tessellation Academy. And I just want to go through some of the past topics so you understand like what this membership is all about and what we've got coming up this next year. So we already have alternating square twists, arrangements of triangle twists, open hexagon and closed triangle twists, which have some really cool properties. Folding in stripes. So instead of folding around and around and around the center, you do a stripe and then you add another stripe and another stripe and another stripe. And like, what are the properties of tilings that lead to that? How can you identify that from a crease pattern? How can you plan which direction to work through a stripe? So there's all kinds of things that you can learn. We talk about right triangle twists, pseudo tiling breaks, which is basically this technique where you don't have to fold the whole twist right away when you get to it. You can fold part of the twist, leave it set up in a flat state, and then continue onwards. We often talk about symmetry extensions, so different ways of applying symmetry to a common tiling. Trapezoids. So there's patterns that just use trapezoids. Those will come up again. So right triangle and square twists. You'll notice there's a bias here towards patterns that use a triangle grid. So every fourth month uses a square grid. So hexagons and triangles twofold, hexagon double rhombus triangle tiling, trapezoids and triangles, those are all based on a triangle grid. And then we have a square grid topic, hybrid square twists. And then, so now we're getting into last year. And there's also ebooks that have all of these materials, all these patterns, all the tiling diagrams, all of the design trees. I'll get into a bit of what those tiling diagrams and design trees look like in a minute. So the Volume 1 ebook goes through the trapezoid and triangle twist topic. The Volume 2 starts with hybrid square twists and continues with this Hex-Tri 6-fold Symmetry Extension 2, mixed depth rhombus twists, hexagons and triangles 3-fold tiling, another look at right triangle and square twists because there's a lot in there, and then looking at tiling expansions, so hexagon, triangle, then another hexagon. Actually, the pattern I'll be talking about over on Instagram and in the short video this week is mitosis, which is one that I designed specifically for this topic and for this tutorial. Then we've got hexagon, triangle, rhombus, then what? Hexagon, triangle, trapezoid, then what? Square tiling symmetry extensions, hybrid hexagon twists, mixed depth hexagon twists, clusters of 4 equilateral triangles. That gets us to the end of the Tessellation Academy Volume 2 ebook, which both of those ebooks, the Volume 1 and Volume 2, are available at gatheringfolds.com, at origamigusa.org, and at origamishop.com. So you can get those wherever your favorite place to get origami ebooks is. if you want to get, you know, a flavor of what we do. Then this year we've got the compound square twists that have already been, like all those materials have already been released, and I'm releasing the materials tomorrow for the alternating hexagons and triangles topic, starting with a tutorial of closed triaxial weave. That grid is actually 32 divisions at 1/2 rotation. And so that means that I can get through an extra ring around the center. I actually have it already folded here. So I can get through not just the first ring around the center, but also the second. And the compound hexagons with Y joins, that's a really cool pattern with compound hexagon twists that I actually needed 48 grid divisions to do the tutorial. So we really, with these tutorials, I really like take the time, do 32 plus grid divisions. We're really focused on helping you fold as many repeats as you like. So hi, Zach. Hi, hey, Jupiter. Good morning, everyone. So yeah, so the tiling diagrams are interactive. The design trees are PDFs, and I run Linux myself, so everything definitely works on Linux. And that's actually a good segue. Let's go and take a look at the hexagons and triangles tiling. And before we do, I'll show you all the patterns that are in that topic. So a lot of them are fairly basic, with alternating closed or open hexagon, closed or open triangle, but then I throw in triple open triangles, double open hexagons. These hexagons and triangles use double depth pleats. And of course, with the tutorial with the compound twists, we get that flavor of, oh, this isn't just about basic patterns. We can take this to more advanced places too. So what the Tessellation Academy downloads for the month look like, and I'll just show the one for this month, is you open it up. Of course, I'm not on the first page. And you see a cover page with the patterns and all their names, the topic name, and then you come down and you see, okay, here's an analysis of what you can do, how it can be folded, and the tiling itself, just a quick graphic. And then there's these tiling diagrams. And if you click on that, that will automatically download the tiling diagram, which I'm just going to go to my copy that's already downloaded. You can see there's quite a few of these tiling diagrams that I've made over the years. And there's the one I'm looking for. And so in our theory and design workshops, we go and look at these tiling diagrams and look and say, hey, what is the skeleton structure? So this is, how do the twists connect? Basically, every hexagon is connected to 6 triangles. Every triangle is connected to 3 hexagons. It makes this pattern of rhombi with 6 corners in the hexagons, 3 corners in the triangles. That's going to be true no matter what symmetry you use. And then you can see, okay, what are the symmetry points? And you can choose whether to overlay that on the skeleton or have it without the skeleton. If you overlay on the skeleton, you can particularly see that the 6-fold and 3-fold symmetry positions are in twists and the 2-fold position is not. And then you can go into, like this particular tiling has a lot of layers. You can go and say, hey, I want to color it differently. And then what's the symmetry of that? I want to have another coloring. What's the symmetry of that? On and on and on. There's also some weirder colorings and symmetries that you can get into with these patterns. And let's see, if I turn all those off, then this one will make sense. Yeah, so you can have these threefold symmetry points lining up, and in different topics we focus more on different symmetry types for these guys. So the software that I'm using to open this is Inkscape. It's free, open source, easy to install on all the operating systems. You can also use something like Adobe Illustrator if you already happen to have that software. And then there's also layers, and I'm going to remove the colors so the layers are easier to see. Layers where you can take a look and say, hey, how should I fold this? And that comes out to, well, you want to stop at places where you have boundaries that are that have smooth edges, that don't have divots in the edges. In math speak, we call this convex shapes. And so you can add on to your existing hexagon. And one of the cool things about this is if you wanted, you could print this. Like if I say, well, let's see, maybe let's say file. Actually, the easy thing to do is to export a PDF, and I could say, okay, I'm gonna have that as Hex-Tri 6-fold breaks, save it as a PDF, and then I can open that up in my PDF reader and print it on my laptop or on my printer, and then start coloring in and say, hey, okay, I colored in this one. For the next hexagon that I add, maybe I'm doing 6 triangles first, and then I'm doing the 6 hexagons and then the outer triangles. And then the next layer out, I want to keep these smooth boundaries, and I can color in, okay, I'm going to add these 2 triangles in this hexagon. That's still smooth boundaries. I'm going to add these 2 triangles in that hexagon. We have some overlaps in here. There's going to be 2 pleats coming out this way, 2 pleats coming out that way. Then I can do these 2 triangles and a hexagon. And now we're back to smooth boundaries. So there's all kinds of ways that you can use these tiling diagrams beyond just looking at them on a screen. I also often have alternative boundaries. So if you wanted to, you could fold these patterns in stripes, which I would recommend if, for example, you're folding a pattern on a rectangle instead of on a hexagon. You could fold this pattern centered on a triangle if, for example, you're using a triangular sheet of paper. You could do some kind of oblong shape. You really have a lot of freedom when it comes to the boundaries in this tiling. And then there's weirder things. Some tilings have a lot of weird things. But basically going through these tiling diagrams is what we do in the theory and design portions of like the theory and design workshop in Tessellation Academy every month. And I can't resist. So the space that's been added to the baseline tiling, and when I say space that's been added, I mean the edges that have been stretched. So I'm drawing lines across all the edges that have been stretched. That also forms a balanced network, which I find wild. And then you can do that in different ways, and it creates, in this case, the same network, but different size, which is fascinating to me. And in this particular tiling, I think you have to use a hexagonal lattice to stretch it, because if you're going to stretch any of the edges, you have to stretch a triangle. And if you stretch one side of a triangle, you have to stretch all three sides of a triangle. And therefore, all of the ways that you're going to do this are going to involve these three-way intersections at corners of your lattice. There may also be other intersections in the middle, but that's getting into speculative territory. So those are the tiling diagrams, and then the design trees are PDFs. So this is another thing that I go through in the theory and design workshops. I go through and I say, okay, we've got this PDF. How do we interpret it? And there's some of how do you interpret it down at the bottom. So all of these numbers match up with the splitting points of the diagram. So your first twist, should it be a closed twist or an open twist? And you'll notice there's this little, and there could be others. And then the second choice is, will your triangle be on the same or the opposite side? So mountain, mountain, or mountain, valley, relative to your hexagon. And of course, you can make that choice on either branch. And then the third choice is your triangle going to be closed or open? And there's that little hint of or other. Could be double open, could be cursed. Could be a number of other triangle things. And that leads to all of these different patterns. And in this case, this tree is really well filled in because it's really clear, okay, closed or open hexagon, closed or open triangle on the same or opposite side. And I've done all of those permutations. But then there's questions of, well, what about the spacing? Do I do it at flagstone spacing, as dense as possible? Do I stretch out in just one direction like I was showing you on the tiling diagram with these boundaries? You can have a boundary that's just a straight line all the way through. And so you can make patterns where there is an extra space added along one direction of tiling break lines. And that's what stretched pinwheel and corset do. And if I remember correctly, corset was a Tessellations by Tiles theory talk design. So what happens in these theory talks is I go through all the theory and then we design something together. And that feeds back into how I talk about theory the next time, because it's all like all of these topics we're coming back to over and over years. And so one of the great things for me personally about running Tessellation Academy is that when I'm working up these documents and explaining how stuff works, I often have realizations about how stuff is working. And I often have ideas about what if I change this variable, what if I change that variable? So you can have a lot of variability, a lot of new options that go beyond the specific design tree. And that's where we start playing with ideas, getting into, like, one of the things I'm going to bring up this month in the theory and design workshop is these patterns with multiple pleats per hexagon bit, multiple pleats per triangle bit, and that you can still make some really cool stuff with those. And we got into that with the advanced pattern. Oh, and by the way, all of these PDFs have information on the pattern, including the rotation if you want to have the repeats aligned with the edge of the paper. It has a crease pattern drawn on 64 grid divisions. It has that same crease pattern annotated with the skeleton, so you can more clearly identify where the twists are and what is not a twist, which in this pattern is relatively clear, but there are other patterns where it is not at all clear. And so with the advanced tutorial for this month being compound hexagons and Y-joins, we are already stepping into the, well, your hexagon doesn't necessarily need to have only one pleat. You can use this theory if your hexagon or hexagon-ish thing that fits in a hexagon tile, which just means it has balanced pleats heading out in 6 directions. As long as the pleats coming out of your hexagon thing match with the pleats that are coming out of your triangle thing, you can alternate them. So that's really what the theory workshops are looking at, not just what is the narrow application of this theory, but what's the broad application. So that's a taste of what's coming up in Tessellation Academy this month. And the next months coming up, yeah, that document was fine before. The next months coming up are the Hex-Rhomb-Tri-Rhomb Tiling. And when I made the PDF for this, I got really excited and went and designed 7 new patterns, which unfortunately are not photographed right now, but I am folding one at the moment. And let's see. And in this pattern, you can get a smidge of backlighting there. You can see 3 triangles around the hexagon. And the trick is that the other 3 are on the back. And this is an example of a different application of symmetry on the Hex-Rhomb-Tri-Rhomb tiling that does not require using hybrid twists. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to bump one of the patterns from a future topic, which down in December, I'm going to be talking about the symmetry extensions in the Hex-Rhomb-Tri-Rhomb tiling. So one of these patterns is getting bumped to put this new pattern in. But you can see everything that's in yellow are patterns that I designed when I wrote this list to fill the gaps so that each topic has 8 patterns, and I've already folded them this year. And so I need to do some photography before I make the May document. But yeah, it's all very exciting, the topics that I'm working on this year. So April is Hex-Rhomb-Tri-Rhomb tiling, May, Rhombus ladder tilings, which sounds super vague. It's my own terminology, but we'll get into it. Basically, it's a alternative way of repeating a hexagon rhombus triangle rhombus center, where you have another rhombus connected to your initial rhombus, and then that one is in a position of 2-fold rotational symmetry. And there's slightly more conditions to it, but that's the gist of it. And then we've got square tiling extension 1. This one I designed a pattern specifically for the advanced tutorial. Equilateral triangle intersections. So every so often I throw in an easier topic. This one is going to be really aimed at more beginner folders. So these are not all super advanced topics, they're not all super easy either. Most of them are in the middle, but we do have that wide spread of topics in Tessellation Academy of the things that are easy for beginners and then the things that are super challenging for everybody. Then the Hex-Tri-Rhomb-Tri tiling, hexagon trapezoid rhombus triangle. So this is things like mystery weave and serrated that were in Advent of Tess last year. Well, I guess, yeah, mystery weave was one of those patterns. And so those will get tutorials on larger grids than the Advent of Tess versions. The square tiling weaves, that is a fascinating topic. That was one of my first forays into designing. I was sketching how the backside of these weaves would look onto grid paper and then figuring out how to fold them. And it all worked out because if you enforce kind of weaving looking rules, then you also enforce right and left-handed twists being connected, which is absolutely wild. Then there's the aligned Rhombi tiling. This is one of the tilings that has only rhombus twists. Like I mentioned earlier, Hex-Rhomb-Tri-Rhomb Symmetry extensions. We're also going to do Hex-Tri-Rhomb-Tri Symmetry extensions. That'll be the cutoff for Tessellation Academy Volume 3. And I've got February of next year planned out as well, mostly because by the time I get through Advent of Tess in December, so basically I'm going to work through and have everything prepared through January next year. And I'm going to get that done by like July. And then I'm going to do Advent of Tess for the whole fall. By the time I'm through with Advent of Tess, I'm just getting back into my office in mid-January. And then I have enough time to prep February before February happens. So the reason why I think it out in year-long stretches is because of Advent of Tess and working around that. But I've been able to keep it going on a monthly basis for 2 years already, even with doing Advent of Tess. And yeah, there's no issue with getting all of the work done. So one thing that's special about Tessellation Academy right now is that it is on sale. So if you go to training.gatheringfolds.com/academy, you will see, once this loads, that there is a limited time sale, 50% off of the monthly and annual plans until March 17th. So that's 2 weeks from today. And I go through and explain all the things, all the sample topics, which you've already seen. The monthly schedule is that things are released on Wednesdays. The first Wednesday, I release the beginner tutorial and the files for the month. So that's tomorrow, if you want to join right now. And then the second Wednesday, I release the advanced tutorial. Then the third Wednesday at noon Eastern Time, New York time zone, we have the theory and design workshop on Zoom, and that is recorded for future viewing. There's so many topics already in there, and everything that I've covered in the past is still available inside of there. So the monthly and the annual membership gets you access to all of everything that is being added to every month. It doesn't just get you access to that particular time period's material. You get everything, and the files include basically what I showed you, the cover page, the introduction to the topic, the downloadable tiling diagram. Oh, I did not show one other thing in the monthly download. which is the animation. So some tilings also have animations, and that basically walks through each tiling break. Oh, it did decide to open from the PDF. It was just being slow about it. And then loops through from the beginning. And you can choose, if you want, to click and say, okay, if I've clicked, I'm pausing it. I can hit back to make it shrink again. I can leave it there, and then when I'm ready, I can add the next one, and the next, and the next. This particular one is one of the early ones that I made, and I have basically white transparency layers that are graying out the center as you go further and further out. A lot of the other animations just keep everything as is. So that is the other feature of the details box. So those diagrams, etc. So there's a lot of other courses that I've made as well. Tessellation Starter Sequence and Tessellations by Tiles in particular would be the direct substitute for Tessellation Academy. And Tessellation Starter Sequence does have more of an emphasis on learning to read crease patterns. And if you're just starting to read crease patterns, I would recommend Tessellation Starter Sequence. And then Tessellations by Tiles, I see as kind of the version 0, version 1, and then Tessellation Academy is really the maturing of the teaching that I did in Tessellations by Tiles. The other benefit of the other courses is that there's more open office hours. So in Tessellation Academy, there is time in the design workshop to ask questions about that particular topic. But if you want to ask questions about any topic, that is more of a Basic Twist Bootcamp or Tessellation Starter Sequence office hour kind of question. So there are also a lot of videos. I mean, you're watching this on my YouTube channel, you know there's a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, but they don't come with crease patterns, and they don't come with these tiling diagrams or design trees, and they don't come with live sessions. I mean, we're here in a live session, and oh yeah, so Nancy's asking in the chat to clarify, for anyone joining after today, they will still have access to the March videos. Yeah, anyone joining at any point in time will have access to the entire backlog of topics. So no matter when you join, you'll have access to all of the topics. And right now, so usually that's for the minimum price to join would be $22 per month or $195 per year. But right now, for the next 2 weeks, it is $11 per month. So I'm going to say the hack would be you go in, you watch whatever tutorials you really want to watch this month, you download the files, and then you cancel and you're out $11. Now, I'm personally of the opinion that once you get in there, you're going to enjoy it and you're going to want to stay, but that is an option. Likewise, $95 per year for the annual plan instead of the normal $195. That does save you $37 compared to the monthly plan. And then there's also a lifetime option. So I'm not of the opinion that like you should keep paying me forever for these things, like you're going to spend some time learning and then you're going to either move on to something else or you're going to start designing your own things. The things that I'm teaching are going to be super valuable for some amount of time, and I'm under no delusion that I'm making a bunch of mini-me's who are going to be like hanging on my every word for 20 years. And so one of the cool things that I've set up with Tessellation Academy is that your monthly or your annual payments count towards a future upgrade to a lifetime membership. Oh, awesome. We've got a lifer in the comments. Actually, I think I see 3 lifers in the comments. And so once you've paid enough for a couple years, then you just keep access to everything without still paying for it. So, and of course, I would give you a choice on that. If you wanted to continue supporting this research that I'm doing, you are absolutely welcome to keep paying me. But if you wanted to say, yep, this is enough, I've paid in my dues and I want to switch to the lifetime membership, once you've paid more than the current price of the lifetime membership, which right now is at $445. So outside of this promo period, it's $675. Once you reach that level, I'll send you an email and give you the option to upgrade, and then you'll just have access to everything, including the new stuff that comes out, for as long as I keep producing it. And like, I know that everything in life is finite. I'm under no illusion that I will be able to continue producing this infinitely. So this also kind of has a cap on the number of years that, well, we'll see how things shake out. At some point, I'm going to want to write a book. And I'm going to have to choose, like, Tessellation. Do I produce Tessellation Academy that year or Advent of Tess? Because I cannot write a book and do Tessellation Academy and Advent of Tess. But that's not coming up this year. And as you can see in here, if I scroll up, I've got that list of topics that I've already committed to. And the pending topics list, so each color here covers a year worth of topics. My pending topics list covers more than 2 years. So you will absolutely be getting your money's worth out of this, even if you jump straight to the lifetime membership. And like I said, there's already 2 years of material in there. So the other feature that I haven't mentioned yet is that there's a Discord channel for Tessellation Academy members inside of my Discord server. And basically, you keep all of the downloads if you choose to cancel your subscription, but you do lose access to the recordings, to the live sessions, and to the Discord channels if you choose to unsubscribe. Yeah, so of course, with folding tessellations, we are all very aware that we want things to be infinite, but they cannot be infinite. So that is what's going on in Tessellation Academy for the next 2 weeks only. And like you'll see here, 14 days plus 12 hours and change. This is going until the end of the day on the 17th, New York time. And I'm excited to see a new cohort of people joining and learning to fold all of these patterns. It's been really exciting to see everyone posting patterns that they've learned in Tessellation Academy. And this is one of the things I would recommend next after Advent of Tess. Like if you get through Advent of Tess, particularly this last year, if you made it through this last year, then you're ready for Tessellation Academy. And there's so much to explore inside of Tessellation Academy, and I'm just going to go through a bunch of the topics, mostly in terms of the patterns that are included. So I'll start at the very beginning when I did not have my naming system fully formed. But we start with alternating squares. Those could be different sizes on the same side, could be hybrid twists on opposite sides. Arrangements of triangles, groups of 4, could be groups of 6 and groups of 4. Open hexagon and closed triangle twists, they could be alternating. They could be making these alternating clusters in the hexagons and triangles threefold tiling. This is knotted web. Folding in stripes, you could have rhombus and triangle twists. You could have trapezoid and triangle twists. All depends on what you're going for. Both of these patterns are the same on both sides. And with right triangle twists, you could arrange them with mirror symmetry and stripes. You could arrange them with mirror symmetry around pairs of 2 of them. And there was one more in that micro sequence. Pseudo tiling breaks. You can use the hexagons in positions of 6-fold symmetry, rhombus in 2-fold, triangle in 3-fold. You could disrupt that. You can really apply this to a lot of different topics. That's one of the reasons why I made it an early topic, because it's more general. So then up at the top, let's see, then I'll just walk through all of these patterns are in there, and these tutorials, all of these patterns with trapezoids, including closed trapezoids that look more like arrows, and these tutorials, all of these patterns are in there, and these tutorials, all of these patterns. And we had a lot of fun in the theory and design workshop for this one, going in and saying, well, actually we can take this and modify it this way, and these other ones we can modify that way, and we still maintain this amount of symmetry, but we're playing with what exactly the symmetry properties are going to be. And these are the tutorials. And Hex-Trap-Rhomb-Tri tiling. This is a fun topic. We've got inchworm, we've got enveloped, whirlpools. This one throws in a mixed depth rhombus version. In this tiling, there's actually a couple different ways to use mixed depth rhombi in this one, I think. And we had these as our tutorials. Those, what look like blank spaces, are actually very, very large hexagon twists. So that's fun. And trapezoid and triangle twist. There are so many things that you can do with just trapezoid and triangle twists. It is wild, including some pretty complex ones. And the tutorial patterns. Hybrid square twists, all kinds of things that you can do with hybrid square twists. And tutorials. Symmetry extension 2, you can use all regular twists or you can throw in hybrid twists. Notice it's got the crease pattern for inlaid in there. All kinds of fun stuff going on. This one has double open triangle twists with the twofold rectangle hybrid hexagons. And if I remember correctly, that one was, well, if it wasn't a design particularly for Tessellation Academy, it was really close in there. It was designed, maybe might have been designed for Advent of Tess, I'm not sure. But I'd say most of my designing these days is either for Tessellation Academy or Advent of Tess. Mixed depth rhombus twists, all kinds of weird and interesting things that you can do here, some of which require full pre-creasing. Actually, I think this whole bottom side requires full pre-creasing, but the top three do not. And we found another one in the theory and design session that did not as well. And the tutorials. The hexagons and triangles threefold tiling, all kinds of fun things that you can do there. I think one of my next patterns that I'll be folding in the next week or so is something that came out of this theory and design session. And those tutorials, one with regular twists, one with hybrid hexagon twists, those big triangles. There's a lot of patterns with right triangle and square twists in extended symmetry positions. And the theory and design workshop for this topic produced one of the coolest patterns that I've ever seen, really. I need to fold a bigger version of that. And then there's hexagon, triangle, then hexagon. Mitosis, that's this pattern that I said I'll be talking about more this week, was designed particularly to be in here. Summer Islands, I think, was a new design for this too. There's, I think in that theory and design session, we got into some interesting contradictions, I think. And we had to do a lot more massaging of the pattern to get it to work out. And there's our two tutorials. And Hex-Tri-Rhomb something, starting with Hex-Tri-Rhomb-Tri and then into the expansions and into some pretty funky expansions. This one actually involves mixed depth twofold hexagon twists, which you would not expect really from, actually I think it has twofold and threefold mixed depth hexagon twists. So yeah, really not something that you would expect with a Hex-Tri-Rhomb-Tri start. And then there's the two tutorial patterns, hexagon, triangle, then trapezoid, then some form of mixed depth twist, using some amount of symmetry, and we actually got into some of this kind of topic last week with the helicopter hanger tutorial. And the tiling diagram that I used for that tutorial, I made for Tessellation Academy for this topic. And the tutorials for those, and the square tiling symmetry extensions. I'm covering, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 different symmetry extensions, I think, in this set of patterns. This one's pretty wild, getting those flagstone patches with the open and the double open squares. Oh yeah, so Hey Jupiter, the coolest one, that is a pattern named Hatteras Spiral. Actually, I'll pull up the pattern itself. So it's an ISO area pattern that looks like this. Super cool. And I don't usually do a lot of work with right triangles and squares because it usually takes a lot of grid. But this one is on a 32 division grid and it's already getting those repeats around the center. And this is the back side of what we folded that day in class. So not only do we design the new pattern, but then I also fold it and teach it. So you do get actually 3 tutorials each month. And then continuing on with the list of topics, we've got these two as our tutorial patterns, and getting into the hybrid hexagon twists. Menagerie is part of that group of patterns. Also, I think that one is raspberries. Has hybrid hexagons on both sides of the paper. This one uses these right trapezoid hybrid hexagons to make these little kind of knot blocks. There's so many things. And the spiky hybrid hexagon, that's a wild one. And we've got mixed depth hexagon twists, all kinds of cool stuff that you can do with those, and the tutorials for those. So all of these things that I'm showing are available whenever you sign up. It just so happens that right now is a particularly good time. And the January topic this year was clusters of 4 triangle twists. And you can see you can make that as complicated as you want. You can use double depth triangles. You can have things be really dense spacing. And this one, the advanced tutorial, is denser spacing. And that's taking me back to the beginning. Then last month we worked on compound square twists with these 2 tutorials. This month is the alternating hexagon and triangle twists with these tutorials. This one, like I showed earlier, I did on a 32 fold grid that rotated diagonally. So I was able to get that extra ring of repeats around the center, which is really what we want in these tutorials, seeing how to repeat the whole thing for as many repeats as you want. And then next month, we have some classic patterns for the tutorials and some really weird ones that are some of my earliest designs also included. And that one is a weird one from filling out the design tree. This tiling has some hidden depths. And lens stars and just rhombi are the 2 tutorials. And then in May, we'll have these 2 as tutorials. And I believe that is as far as I've made these graphics. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and drop the link in the chat as well. training.gatheringfolds.com/academy is the place to join. And there's so many cool things already in there to learn about, and so many cool things coming up over the next year. So that is what's going on. Those are the announcements for Tessellation Academy, and I hope that y'all consider joining. I would love to see you in 2 weeks at the next Theory and Design workshop, and happy folding. Have a great day.